Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Feed the Beast Revelation. And look what I can do. Yay! I just discovered that my Britannia armor doesn't understand emotes. And I find that amazing. So, anyway, welcome back to another episode of Feed the Beast Revelation, episode number 10. Now, 10 episodes in, and honestly, I feel like we haven't really accomplished all that much. I mean, the only real structure we have is this little, quote-unquote, temporary hovel we have here, which, you know, we've got a storage system and a few basic machines, and we've thrown together a couple little things, like a mob system, but we really haven't dived into mods to the extent that I want to, right? We still haven't done anything really complex or anything really impressive and cool, and that's the stuff I really want to get to. Now, the main reason we haven't done that just yet is because of the building style issue. Because, well, I've been pretty indecisive about what I want this area to really look like. And each time that I've worked on the build style, which we've done a few times now, I've gotten a slightly better idea of what I wanted, at least in some kind of general concepts. But the style itself, I'm still kind of struggling with, because I don't really know what exactly I want to do. And diving into building before you know what you want the builds to look like, especially when I want this place to be rather expansive, it seems like kind of a bad idea. That being said, I want today to be the last day that I really need to experiment with build styles, because that is what we're going to do, but after today I'm hoping that I'll at least have a pretty good idea of what I want to do, and in the future I'll probably just refine one of the styles we have, or merge them together, or something along those lines. That being said, I do want to try out a couple more styles before I really dive into that, before I really kind of settle on a specific idea. And there's a couple I have in mind. Maybe we'll try even more out today. It kind of depends how things go. But right here at the beginning, I want to take care of one of them right off the bat. And that is one that's loosely inspired by Victorian houses. I think that has a lot of potential to look pretty cool, especially because it would give us a lot of kind of variableness, right? Because there's a lot of different styles when it comes to Victorian houses. They all have kind of some specific things that tie them all together, but they also have a lot of variety. So that would be an interesting route to go, and I definitely want to try it out. We may even try two different styles to see how that would all go together. So I'm going to go ahead and get to that, and I'll talk to you guys once that's in place, and we can go from there. So here is our completed build, or the completed front facade of a build at least. And before we actually take a look at that, can I just say that creative mode flight is the single greatest thing when you're trying to build something. I cannot believe that I waited so long to do it. I mean, I had a good reason for not wanting to do it instantly, so that I would have reasons to try out other things, and I still do want to try other means of transport. But for building purposes, I think I'm going to focus on getting flight, like creative mode flight, day one if I ever start another modded world, because seriously, game changer. Another thing that's a huge help is this diamond wand from the Better Builders wands. If you're not familiar with what this is, essentially this allows you to automatically place down blocks. So you can see we're mousing over the default bricks, and all of these white blocks are areas where bricks would get filled in if I right-clicked right now. And I could shrink that selection or, enlarge it or whatever, but basically this means that you can build up like large bulks of blocks really, really quickly. So this wall, for example, all I had to do is place down the bottom row, and then I just flew up while right-clicking, and I could place this entire wall within like 2 seconds, which is amazing. Super duper handy, pretty cheap to make, just takes 1 diamond, and there are cheaper versions, but I mean, it's only 1 diamond, come on now. So that is awesome. Make sure you make one of those if you're going to be building. Anyway, enough about that. Here is our build. Now, like I said before, this is based on kind of Victorian architecture. It's actually based on a house I found in Google Images, and I think it looks pretty good. Honestly, this is probably my favorite one so far. I didn't actually realize until I stepped back after building it that it completely dwarfs the other ones we've built, which is fine. It's totally fine to have something big, but it is quite large, which, I mean, again, we did want vertical height, so I can't really complain about that. And like I said, in general, I actually like this quite a lot. There's definitely some things I'll probably want to experiment with, but there's a few aspects to it that I really like. For example, the roof style. It's got this kind of like really steep slope to it. Obviously, I didn't complete it very much, but it's got this steep slope to it, and then it just flattens out at the top. And I actually like that style a lot. I think that that could look pretty cool. And basically the sides would be the same thing. It would basically be this on all 4 sides of the building, or however many sides it has. And then we could have other little bits that would stick out and whatever we want. But I think that's a really cool roof style to work with. And currently it's made up of these slate roof stairs and blocks from Rustic. Like Rustic adds in the slate block and you can turn it into these tiles. If we wanted a different color, we could always use the terracotta shingles from Cork. These are a very similar texture, but we would have all of the terracotta colors. So we could make colorful roofs if we wanted to, though I kind of like the black on white. I think that looks kind of cool. But that is something I'll probably experiment with a little bit, maybe change up the detailing a little and experiment with stuff that's a little different. But overall, I really like that roof style. So we may end up going with that, even if we go with a different build style in general. The rest of it, as far as like block palette goes, is definitely up in the air. I wanted to try out having a building that had like red bricks. The strange thing that I wasn't really expecting is that red bricks are honestly kind of limiting in this mod pack. I was expecting, because we have so many blocks, right? I mean, we've got just thousands and thousands of blocks to work with. I was kind of expecting that there would be a really nice set of brick textures in there somewhere. But strangely, any day now? There we go. Strangely, there's really not. You have like the default brick and the variants added in by the chisel, which I've tried to mix a few in here, which is a little strange looking. And other than that, there's really not many red brick textures, like normal looking red brick textures that you can work with. There's a few that would almost work, but they're, a little dark, a little saturated, or they just don't have any variety to work with and they would look kind of repetitive. So that was a bit shocking to me. I'm surprised we don't have access to a better one, but as far as I know, we don't. I may have just overlooked it or something. Like I said, I did try and mix in a few variations from the chisel mod. I don't really know what I think about them. They look a little strange. It kind of looks warped. It looks like someone loaded it into Photoshop and just kind of smudged the bricks around a little bit. So I don't know about that. I mean, the textures themselves are completely fine, but in this scenario, I think it looks a little bit strange. So not entirely sure about that, but I didn't want to just have the repetitive brick texture everywhere. I could try and break it up with more detailing with like little, fan textures and stuff like that, but I don't know. That's something to experiment with. I did also add in the coins, the corner ridge structure things to give it a little more shape and to break up the texture a little bit. I'm sure you've seen that quite often on certain builds, and I think that helps a lot. It also gives granite a use, which is cool. So, I don't know. I think we'll probably have some brick buildings, because I kind of like the style. I don't think it's too bad, but I'm not sure that that'll be like our most often used material or anything like that. We'll see. Not entirely sure about the sandstone either. I could probably replace that with a lot of stuff. Basically anything that has stairs and slabs would work. So obviously we have tons of woods that we could use and a few other things. Brownstone might be an interesting option. Maybe even seared brick. I'm not sure how black would look on there, but that might be interesting. I'll have to try all of that out. And there is also the window texture, which is one of the chiseled glass textures. I wanted to try something other than just boring old glass in there, and honestly, I kind of like it. I'm not sure about this texture exactly, but having some kind of like framing structure inside of the windows, I think that could look pretty cool. We may end up doing our own, so we can kind of figure out a more unique and interesting design. You know, something with chisel and bits, for example. Speaking of chisel and bits, by the way, there's actually something, we'll probably be diving into that a little bit more in the near future. There's something I discovered recently that may make chisel and bits really, really awesome. More awesome than it already is. Of course, I'm already kind of slowly descending down the slippery slope of chisel and bits consuming my life, but I'll cross that bridge when I come to it. Anyway, that is the current build. There's a few other little things I could work on, a few other details that if I wanted to spend a bunch of time on, I would probably do. For example, Victorian houses frequently have little details like almost ornate fencing type stuff on top of the roofs when they have this style of roof. So we could try that out, you know, make little chisel and bit style fencing up top. And, you know, we've got like this leaf block stuff going up the sides, the vine, ivy stuff. I'd probably want to do something a little bit better looking than just shrinking some leaves down and plastering them down there. Maybe like a custom chisel and bits vine. I think that would probably look good. But again, stuff I'll have to try out and hopefully not lose my life to. I just realized I suggested like 5 different things all involving chisel and bits in like 30 seconds. So that is scary, but we'll worry about that in the future. For right now, I'm going to leave this build as it is, and we're going to move on to the second one, which is also inspired by Victorian architecture, though this one I'm not entirely confident is going to turn out particularly well, because the blocks that I wanted to use for it are blocks that I currently don't have access to. So I'm going to try and kind of wing it and see what it ends up being, but no promises on the second one. We'll see how it turns out. I'm going to go get to it, and I'll be back with you guys in just a second. And here is a build number 2. So once again, this is based on a Victorian style house I found on Google Images, and I think the general layout of it is pretty cool. Again, as I mentioned before, the actual build materials, the block palette that went into it, is not what I originally intended. So the original plan was actually to have the build itself be light blue. It was actually going to be based on a light blue plank texture that we just don't currently have access to, and it would have been kind of a hassle to get it. The roof was also going to be a slightly different color. These are the terracotta shingle textures, by the way, so that's what we would use for that. But that was going to be a slightly different color. I was going to use slightly different textures in a few spots. Unfortunately, I just don't really have easy access to them at the moment, and it wasn't worth going through all the hassle just to try it out. But I think you get the general idea here. This block palette I used is a little strange, but it conveys the idea, and you can see the general shape of the building. And I kind of like it. I think it's okay, but I think the main issue that this one has, and this one suffers from it too a little bit, but this one in particular suffers from just kind of feeling like a house, which kind of makes sense. I mean, it's based on a house-like building, in fact, a literal house, but it would be really hard for me to see this as anything other than a house. It just really looks like a house-type building, whereas this one, even though it is a house, it's a little bit different. It feels different enough that I could see it being something other than a house. Now, obviously, we only have kind of the bare minimum as far as detail goes right now. I've just been doing this generic, pipe into the side of the wall, the scaffolding coming out of the building, all that stuff. Obviously, we can do quite a lot more, and we can do stuff that's really thematic. So, let's say this was our embers building, for example. We could have an area next to the building where we're pulling up the embers from the core of the earth, if we decide to go that route with it, and then, pump the embers into the building, like really visually and in a neat way. Obviously, that would help set it apart quite a lot. Should probably go ahead and snooze. So that's a thought. I mean, it wouldn't be the end of the world even if our structures did look like houses, because they are going to have a lot more detail to them eventually. But I don't know. I kind of like that this one is a little more ambiguous, that it's not so house-like. So that's something to consider. Maybe it's just a block palette. Maybe this would feel a little bit better with the proper blocks in place. But I don't know. I think overall I like it, but it's probably not the route I'm really thinking of going. I'll leave it here for a little bit, though, and think about it. I'll probably tweak things a little bit. In fact, that's something we'll probably be doing in the future. Like I said before, we're probably going to not focus on brand new build styles from here on out. If I do think of another build style before we really finalize it, and I test it out and I think it looks really good, I'll probably pop it down somewhere in the world, even though I'm quite out of space at the moment. I'll probably pop it down somewhere and bring it up to you guys a little bit, but I don't think we're really going to spend a bunch of time building new styles anymore, because I really do want to start moving forward. Hello, lag spike. So I think that next time we work on all of the build style stuff, because I don't think I'm going to be able to continue here today. I don't think I have quite enough time to design and crank out an entire extra build style, especially with all the resource gathering involved. But I think that next time we work on all of this stuff, it's going to be kind of either refining the styles we have, because I do think there is some interesting potential in these, especially the two we did today, honestly. And honestly, this one too. I kind of like this one, though it does feel a little small now that I've built these two. But I think we have potential with the ones we've built so far. And I think that if we take certain design cues from each one and kind of mess with them a little bit, maybe change up the block palettes and experiment with that, I think there's a lot of interesting potential here for a really cool build style that we could work with. So that's probably what's going to happen next time we're here, but unfortunately, I don't think I can build any more today. Like I said, it is quite time-consuming, especially with the resource gathering. Quartz, in particular, was kind of rough with these. Thankfully, I'm able to fly around, though for some reason my flight cut out a few times when I was in the nether, which is terrifying. I think there's some issue with the chunk loading system or something. I'll have to look into it. But basically, getting all of this quartz did take quite a while, and same with the brick, actually. That was quite tedious to get all of the clay for. In fact, you can see all the little holes over in our swamp where I picked up all the clay. So it takes quite a bit of time. I don't think I have quite enough to build another entire building today. But on the topic of resource gathering and gathering together a bunch of materials for builds and stuff, I realized earlier today, as I was gathering materials for these, that we have yet to look at the resources from our void ore miner ever since we first built it. So I've left it here the entire time that I've been building, for the last few episodes actually, and it's not pumping into our storage system yet. I still have it set to go to its own chest, and I'm kind of curious how full this is. Oh man, got a little sneak peek. Oh, it's completely full. I mean, not technically 100%, but I wonder how that works. I wonder if it just fails to gather the ore if it doesn't have space, or if it'll just, like, puke it out. Huh. So what do we got here? We've got quite a bit of these crystals already. That's pretty cool. 52 diamonds. Wow. That is substantially more than I thought I was going to have. Over a stack of gold, almost a stack of glowstone. We've got oil sand and oil shale, a bunch of tin and coal, and even quartz. Over a stack of quartz. Oh, there I go. I didn't even... Oh, over 2 stacks of quartz. I didn't even realize that this thing would gather that, so that's handy. A bunch of iron. Okay, so this is pretty fantastic. Let's see, 35 emeralds. Ah, I love it. Okay, so I'm probably going to go ahead and start piping this stuff into our actual storage system. Assuming it works, I think my storage system still has the issue where certain blocks aren't recognized by the filter properly, and it kind of messes things up. So I should probably fix that first, though I really need to get on that because we're kind of out of space here. So I'm going to go take care of this, but unfortunately, I think I'm going to have to call it here for today on this video. Hello? Load times? There we go. So hopefully you guys liked our little Victorian deviations for our build style. I kind of think that this is a really interesting route to go. This one in particular I think has a lot of potential. We'll have to try out different material types and see how they look. But I do really like the general layout that this one has and the general style that this one has. I think it could look really good as like a refined style with a full-on building. But you guys will have to let me know. Maybe we can figure out some like interesting ways to change things up. Or if there's a completely different style you want me to look into, I'm more than happy to do that off camera. And if it starts turning out as something really cool, I will, of course, as I said earlier, build it into the world and we can work on it from there. But I think for today, I'm going to have to call it here. So that's that. Thank you guys for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed, our little building projects, and hopefully you're excited for when we finally get to start building on this area, because I really, really want to start doing that soon. In fact, we may even start within the next episode or two and kind of wing it on the style a little bit and then go back and refine it later on, just so we can get started on some really cool stuff, because I'm really excited for that. Anyway, I'm going to call it here for today. So, thank you guys for watching. I hope you have an amazing day. I'll see you next time.